something strange in the background of my old family photos. Every year, my family would get a family photo taken. We would always go to the same place, the local park. We then all stand in front of the large oak tree and pose for that year's family photo. Every year, we would always ask our close family friend Terry to take the photo. It was one of our traditions that we would follow every year as a family. We followed this tradition for over 15 years. My family isn't really what you would call a close family. We all get along well enough, but we have always been too different from one another to ever have a really close bond. Despite this, though, the day we would take our family photo would be the day of the year that I could feel a real sense of unity and we really felt like a close family. My family consists of me, my mother, my father, my younger sister Samantha, and my older brother Jake. 5 of us in total. Me and my siblings always had an alright relationship growing up. We fought often, but we always found a way to forgive each other before starting our next argument. Over the years, however, we began to drift apart. I think as we got older and got more responsibilities in life, we all found it too difficult to maintain our relationship with one another. Jake had a few kids and moved to a different state, and Samantha became a fairly successful lawyer and so was always very busy. Both of my parents have since passed away as well, so in terms of family, I don't really have any now. When my parents passed away, they left everything to the 3 of us kids, and then we divided up between each of us. Somehow, I ended up with all of the family photos that were taken throughout the years. Maybe I was missing my family, or maybe I was feeling nostalgic, but whatever it is, I decided that I wanted to look through the old family photos and reminisce on the years going by. I went up to the old desk that is sitting inside of the small study room and opened the top drawer. Inside, there was a large pile of old papers that I hadn't been through for many years. I searched through the old bills and the old letters looking for the photos that I knew I had placed in this drawer. I had to search through all of the paper at the bottom of the drawer, set the small stack of photographs of me and my family standing in front of the old oak tree. I gathered them up and closed the drawer before heading out of the study and sitting in the armchair that is in my lounge room. I looked down at the photograph that was on top of the pile. I remember that years ago I had placed the photos in chronological order, and so the photograph on top is the earliest one taken. I was about 3 in the photograph. My parents were both standing behind me and my brother. Jake was next to me. Samantha was not yet born, so she didn't make an appearance in this edition of the family photo. I flicked through the photos, watching me and my brother grow older in each one, and then seeing my sister make an appearance in the 4th photo. I then saw both me and my siblings grow into older kids, then teenagers, and just as I was beginning to look like a man, the photos ended. I knew why the photos ended there. It wasn't because we were getting too old for it. I knew it was because my parents would no longer be able to be in them, and I don't think us kids felt right about taking the photos if our parents would be absent from them. I continued looking at the last photo. I was looking at both of my parents in the images, looking back at their smiling faces, smiling because they didn't yet know what would happen to them. Then something caught my eye behind the back of my parents between the branches of the old oak tree. A man was standing in the background, facing the camera and smiling. He was a very strange looking man. He had long gray hair that hung around the side of his head, but he was balding on top. He was missing a number of teeth, and so his mouth was mostly a gaping black hole. His eyes, however, were probably the strangest thing. They almost appeared red, but that must have been because of the flash of the camera. I laughed a little bit to myself, thinking that we had been photobombed. I then finished flicking through all of the photos, and so was back at the beginning. I was about to put the photos back in the drawer, but that's when I saw it again. I saw him again, the same man standing in the same spot behind my parents. The man looked at the same age as he did in the previous photo, even though this was many years earlier. He also had the same expression on his face, staring and smiling at the camera. His eyes were also the same shade of red as they were in the previous photo. I was a bit worried at this point. How could he appear in both photos that were taken 15 always standing between my parents and watching my family. I tried to think of different rational explanations. Maybe this man knew that we took a photo every year and so planned to always be in the background of the photo. Or maybe it was one of my parents' friends playing a joke on us. I managed to convince myself that it was someone my parents knew and that they were just playing a joke. This helped comfort me enough and helped me try to forget what I had seen. I decided to turn on the television to further take my mind off of it. I switched it on and watched whatever it was on for an hour or two, but that's when it happened. The words "breaking news" appeared, interrupting whatever sitcom I was watching. The newsreader began to speak, and an image of a man I knew all too well appeared on the screen. Terry Sturt, convicted murderer, has died today, the newsreader said as the image of Terry, my parents' close friend, and the photographer of all of our family photographs appeared on the screen. He died in his cell after a long battle with cancer. Terry was convicted back in 1996 of the murder of Edward and Teresa Potter. The newsreader continued as a photo of my parents flashed up on the screen. Terry Sturt has always maintained that he was innocent, and today, in a deathbed confession, he revealed who he believes is responsible for the death of what Terry calls his closest friends. Terry claims that the man responsible is the man by the name of Paul Renling. However, 7 News can reveal that Paul Renling had long since been dead before the murders of Edward and Teresa Potter took place. The newsreader finished speaking and the sitcom I was watching began to play once more. I couldn't get the man out of my head though. Paul Renling, Paul Renling, Paul Renling. My brain repeated over and over. I hadn't heard of the name before, but I had to know who it was. I pulled out my phone and went and opened Google and typed the name Paul Renling into the search bar and then hit search. Most of the results were for Facebook profiles of people with that name. After a bit of searching, however, I managed to find an article with the name of Paul Renling in it. I began to read. Murderer Paul Renling will face life in prison. February 15, 1943. Paul Renling has today been sentenced for the hideous crime of a double murder. He has been convicted of murdering a young couple in cold blood. The couple's names cannot be revealed, but it is known that they have left behind the 2 young children. Renling, 58, will be facing life in prison for his crimes and will likely never see outside of a jail cell ever again. Underneath the article was a small drawing of Renling, and it was unmistakable. This was the man in the photograph that was standing behind my parents. I didn't know what this meant. How could this man that was jailed in the 1940s be in the background of all my family photos? I decided to look at the photos once again, just to make sure it was the same person. I picked up the small stack of photos and looked at the one on top. But the man was no longer standing behind my parents. He had moved. I looked through all of the photos and it was the same in all of them. He had moved from behind my parents. He was now standing right behind me. Okay, so that is the end of this first story and just a few thoughts and opinions. So for 15 years, nobody noticed a creepy man standing in the back of these photos. Or maybe this man appeared after the parents died. I don't know. But what freaked me out the most was that this man was convicted of these crimes, similar crimes, in 1943, but somehow managed to murder his parents in 1996. So I'm going to assume that this is some sort of ghost or something, some evil spirit that is after this family, because like he said at the end, the man in the photo moved from behind his parents to him. So I guess that means he's next, and possibly the other 2 siblings will eventually be next. So that's a pretty good story. Let me guys know what you guys think down below. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be saying the name guess you could say I'm a night owl because my job schedule varies throughout the week. Either I'm working at night or I'm working in the morning. This day I had to work in the morning, so I stayed up the night earlier. I woke up around 9 p.m. I got up to talk to the family, watched some TV, then started getting tired again. This was around 1 a.m. and I decided to go back to bed, and I actually felt the weight of sleeping this time. Once I got my bed ready, I put YouTube on for a little background noise and just started to drift off. Then all of a sudden everything was quiet. Then I dreamed about waking up in a building I have dreamt before, but not for a long time. I was laying on a sleeping bag in a decrepit room with no furniture. I wasn't scared, but confused. The door leading outside suddenly swings open and someone walking in, then slamming it shut. Then I was automatically pushed out of the dream as if I was jolted awake. I was laying there thinking maybe I was just experiencing sleep apnea and tried to get up, but I couldn't. I couldn't move my arms, my legs. It's like I left my body for the next minute of what I'm about to tell you. I have had experience with sleep paralysis before, but not to this extent. Once I knew my body went numb, I started to panic, started to breathe heavy. It was unbearably longer than it should have been. For me, it would last around 30 seconds at most, and I haven't experienced the large weight on my chest yet. That's what I was actually waiting for, and I guess my body was trying to prepare for it because the dread was like a sharp knife point and it just kept jabbing me each passing second. Then I stopped breathing because what happened next made my heart stop and my blood cold. In close proximity of my ear, I heard someone say, "Hey." It sounded like a woman whispering in my ear. I was so disturbed I tried to call out for help, but I knew that couldn't work because I couldn't even breathe out a syllable. I tried to break free of this invincible bind, but I gave up and I knew I had to rough through it. The next thing I know, something sits on my chest, but it wasn't the normal weight I would experience in these episodes. It was something lighter that felt less aggressive. It felt like fingertips caressing across my chest in a sensual way, laying down on my right back. It was followed by a leg wrapping itself on the front of my thighs. The next thing I know, the left side of my body was being weighed upon like someone would be cuddling up next to me. Just for the record, I don't have a girlfriend, and I doubt anyone in my house would start sneaking into my room at night. I was frightened and confused. I still couldn't move. The woman's voice came back. "What are you doing?" it said in a very quiet, sincere tone. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew I had to respond, so as calmly as I could, I said, "I'm trying to sleep." That's when I noticed my face can move and my hands can move, but I refused to open my eyes because I didn't care for what was there to see. The next thing I knew, the weight on my left side started to diminish and my body can move again. So I shot up, looked around the room, no one is there. My senses started to come back and the sound of my computer comes back to me like it was never turned off. I didn't bother going back to sleep. I guess this is a wake-up call. I need a better sleep schedule, probably need to change a few things from now on, but my mind is still stuck on it. Was it a spirit? Was it part of the dream I was having? If it was a spirit, maybe it was just lonely and it just needed a body to lay with. Maybe it was a dream, but I don't dream that often, especially if the touch I felt is real. I don't know what to think. I guess I'll just chalk it up to a hallucination and get on with my life. Wow. Okay. So, I have had sleep paralysis before, right? But luckily, I have never experienced what some people experience. Like some people say, like they see things. Like I've heard the most common subscribe.